to God. And there's times when that's going to be your prayer. God, why are you not here? So it's not just talking to God, it's going to be more than that. Well, why don't you say, Brian, it's communicating to God? Because communication infers two ways. And I believe God does speak to us, but nowhere in the Bible is prayer used as the word for listening to God. That's called revelation. That's called inspiration. Prayer is not listening to God. Prayer is talking to God. It's talking to the one who is above all that listens to us. He also speaks to us. I believe that completely. Please don't misunderstand me, but that's not prayer. It may be a part of a relationship with God that you're communicating both ways, but it's not the definition of prayer. Well, Brian, why don't you say that it's just giving God a message? Well, you could say that it's giving God a message, but there's a lot of messages that you and I sometimes and other people give God without trying. Like, get out of my life, or I don't believe you exist, or whatever. So that's why I say that prayer is giving God a message on purpose. On purpose. So how does this work? I want you to think about great prayers of the Bible. I'm going to reference them very quickly. There's a guy named Solomon. Solomon was this king of the third king of Israel. King David was his father. You may have heard of David. You know, boy, sling, giant, same guy. His daddy. Solomon's daddy was David. David becomes king. He's the second king of Israel. His son is Solomon. Solomon builds this amazing temple to God. It's gorgeous. And after it's built, he prays this prayer that goes on for like a chapter. And it's gorgeous. It's beautiful. It's an amazing prayer to God. On the other hand, you have prayers like the disciples in the boat. They're in a boat, in the middle of the lake. A storm comes up. Jesus is asleep at the back of the boat. Have you ever felt like God was asleep on you? And the waves kick up. And the waves come over the side of the boat, and they're bailing, and they're freaking out, and you know it's bad because the fishermen are starting to spaz. And they finally, like a streak of lightning goes across the sky in my imagination, and they see Jesus at the back of the boat, zonk out. And they run to the back of the boat, start beating him, go, don't you care? You're going to drown, save us! And that's a prayer. And Jesus looks around, wipes the sleep out of his eye, and goes, okay, stop. Back to sleep. And the Bible doesn't say he went back to sleep. That's my interpretation. It's like the ecological snooze control. That's a prayer. In the book of Daniel, you have Daniel who's wrestling with a prophecy that he's been given, and he's confused by it. And he starts praying this prayer, confessing his sin and the sin of his people, and asking God, show me what's going on and what's going to happen. And he prays so long that an angel shows up to give him the message and goes, dude, can you stop praying so I can give you the answer? Done already. All right, I'm here. Let me give you the response that you're looking for. Let me give you the answer. There's all kinds of prayers in the Bible. And I'm afraid that sometimes we've gone to the side of paganism that kind of thinks that you've got to pray a certain way. Have you ever gone to church and maybe when you were just checking the God thing out, you went to church and you hear people pray, you're like, man, I could never pray like that. I'm not going to pray out loud because I'm going to look like an idiot. I think that sometimes people like me up front do a disservice to God. I'm always amazed when I go to big religious convocations and people write out prayers. I'm not saying that's necessarily bad, but usually when they write them out, it's because they really want to sound eloquent. At least that's how it appears to me.